system. And one of the big things we want to do is try to make sure we have play options for everyone to enjoy. You know, whether or not you're a hardcore multiplayer gamer, you're a co-op player, or whatever you are, we want to make sure there's plenty of different ways to play the game. We want to make sure that it's easy for you to find your friends and to organize games. And so here's the thing about ladder play. Ladder play doesn't have to be for hardcore gamers only. You know, I know a lot of people kind of view it that way, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to improve upon that. And this next graphic is actually, I think, my favorite graphic in the whole slide deck, so be ready for it. This dude is a competitive ladder player. You can look how hard he's trying. He's really trying hard to play softball here. But the thing is that we all have experience playing competitively in our everyday lives. You know, it's just that, you know, if you go down to local gym and you play in a basketball league with 6 other teams, you know, you can actually compete against them. You don't necessarily expect that you're going to suddenly, you know, be competing against Michael Jordan. But, you know, you can actually have a really fun experience because you're competing in kind of a structured, organized play with other people of your skill level. And that was really what we wanted to achieve with BattleNet going forward. So here's how it works. When you play on the service for a certain amount of time, you're going to get put into kind of this large league. And these are the different leagues that you'll have. So we have everything from a practice league, which I'll talk about in a little bit, all the way up to a pro league. You know, most of us will probably be somewhere in between all those things. And so for the most part, you'll just kind of know yourself as a bronze player or a gold player or something like that, and you'll play within kind of that percentage of the league. Within your league, you're ranked against 100 players of your skill level. So you'll kind of be in this division. And we make sure that everyone within your division is close enough to your skill level where it's very, very realistic that you can actually compete against them and win. But I do have to call one thing out here, which for some reason, I don't know why, I don't know if you guys know any of the names of the various aliases of the Blizzard employees, but for some reason my web guys decided to put me underneath Jeff Kaplan, Tom Chilton, and Greg Street on this list, and there's no way any of them would beat me at StarCraft 2, so I don't know what the deal with that is. All right. So everyone has a chance to win their division, and that's really the point. So the point is, when you're in a division, that's what you focus on. You focus on your league, you focus on your division, and at the end of the season, if you do really well and you win your division, you place really highly, you get to go to the end of the season tournaments and really prove who's going to win the league. All right, so on top of that, those are kind of the competitive features, you know, for kind of the ladder play, but we also kind of have this concept for casual play options. And this is everything from a practice league, co-op skirmish, random teams, challenges, custom games. And to talk just briefly a little more about the practice league, the way that works is, like if you really are a true new player and you kind of want to be in a safer experience, the practice league has slightly different rules than the rest of the leagues. We actually slow down the game speed and we put maps in there that are very much kind of anti-rush maps. So it really is kind of this kind of friendlier, slowed down experience so you can kind of get used to the game without getting 4-pull rush 2 seconds in. All right, so now I'm going to show you more screens from the competitive arena stuff. All right, so the first thing I talk about is the party system. So the party system is something that's been around in a couple other games. Most notably, obviously, we have a party system in World of Warcraft. And even though that game's a role-playing game, we didn't feel like there was any reason why we couldn't bring that over to Star 2. So it kind of works the same way as you would see in World of Warcraft. So you can invite somebody to your party. In this case, I'm being invited to a party. And if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, now you can see all my party members. So now we're in a party. And the big advantage of being in a party is we can talk with each other very easily. And the other thing is that we automatically go into games together. So whoever the party leader is, they can select whatever game that we're going to play. In this case, we're selected the 2v2 option. I can select my race, and then we go into the game together, and then when the game's over, we also come back into the service together also. So we can just play as this persistent party and play as many games as we want to play until the party breaks up. So this would be an example of once the game starts, waiting for other players, and then load into the game itself. All right, so here's some screens. This is an example of what might happen once you've played in the service for like 10-ish games. It might be a little bit longer than that. You get placed in the league, so there's an example of that where I got selected to be put into the 1v1 Gold League. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about custom games. So I talked a little bit earlier about one of the problems we felt in Warcraft 3 was the custom game list was kind of this mishmash. You know, you'd see a whole bunch of Dota games, and probably most of those Dota games said things like, no noobs, please. And it was like, that was the entirety of the game list. And if you wanted to find an interesting game, or the game you wanted to play, you really couldn't do it. So this is the example of how this list would look. So if you look at the very top, there's the example of Dota All-Stars. So all the different Dota games would be consolidated into that one line under just the name of the map itself. So you're really searching for the type, the map, the game type, or things like that. And if you look at the top, there's also kind of a filter by genre. So you can even like subdivide further and actually filter it even more. So this is an example of that. So under this one, I actually selected co-op skirmish. So now it filters it entirely, and even Dota itself went away since that's not considered a co-op skirmish map. And then this is an example of how you create a custom game. You know, very similar again, very straightforward, very easy to do. One of the things that we added, which is kind of cool, is kind of this, one of the things you can do now is you can create a custom game, and then when you go into the game lobby, you can actually have the game lobby be private, and then invite all your friends, get the teams configured how you want, and then if you notice, like right above my name, there's that button that says open to public, and once you punch that button, what it does is now it broadcasts the game to the game list. So you don't have to kind of do that thing you did in the past where you have to jump in the game, kick a bunch of players, wait till your friends get in, try to coordinate. You know, just go ahead, go into the private game lobby, then invite all your friends, then you can go ahead and publish the game to the game list and get the rest of the players into the game. All right. So the quick summary on this one is, of course, many different types of games to play and watch. It's easy to play and stay with your friends. The ladder is designed for everybody. And something else I want to call out, again, back to the Battle.net account system, is it's also going to help ensure fairer games. Because back in Warcraft 3, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term smurfing? Not a lot of you. Wow, I must really be getting old. Okay, so the concept of smurfing, what that means is what people would do is they'd get really good at Warcraft 3, and then they would actually go and make a brand new account and go into the service, and now they're ranked as like a new player, and then they would just go around stomping on newbies to their heart's content. And that's something because we had these transitory accounts that you could just make as many as you wanted. Under the Battle.net account structure, you're going to make the one account, and your StarCraft game is actually tied to it. So you just can't go off and make a whole bunch of Battle.net accounts for fun because you won't be able to play StarCraft 2 with them. So that means that it's much less likely that you're going to run into these people that are just kind of faking you out with pretending like they're new players, because once they've played like 10, 12 games, we're going to know what their skill system is, they're going to be ranked appropriately, and they're not going to be able to make a whole bunch of new accounts to come down and stomp you. All right, so now we're going to talk about connecting the Blizzard community. So here's the big goals. You know, we want you to make sure that we keep you informed about all the games you're involved in. And when I talk about like connecting the Blizzard community, it's very much kind of the same concept here at BlizzCon. You know, originally when we talked about doing this conference, kind of the idea was, what if we focus and do a conference around World of Warcraft? You know, because previously a lot of the different MMO companies out there, they were doing these conventions around their games, these fanfares. And you know, we kind of had this inspiration and went, well, why should we do that? Why don't we do something that celebrates all of our games and brings all of our different game communities under one roof and call it BlizzCon? And I think that was probably the right decision, and it's kind of the same thing that we're going to be doing with the service. We want to bring, again, all the Blizzard community together. So the idea here is that if you're a StarCraft 2 player, but you also have like World of Warcraft accounts, then you'll actually, when you go onto the service from Star 2, you'll still be able to keep informed of what's going on within World of Warcraft. So we also, of course, want to make it easy for you to find and chat with your friends. I feel like that's something we can improve on. And we want you to stay connected with your friends online, offline, and again across games. So now I'm going to show you a couple more screens from the service. So this is an example. I already showed you the friends list within the game, but this is an example of what's going to look like when you're just kind of within the glue screens within the UI. And the chat's a little bit different than we did in the past. We've decided to switch the chat system over to more of an instant messenger style chat. So it's a lot easier for you to organize. It's a lot easier to have conversations with one person or multiple people. Because if you think back to like Warcraft 3, or even WoW for that matter, it can actually be kind of challenging to try to hold different conversations. You know, like I don't know, I'll probably use a WoW example, might even be more relevant to the crowd, but if you're hanging out in Stormwind and you have all the different public chat channels up and you're also trying to keep 3 different whispers together and talk to your party and talk to your guild, it's pretty hard to do that. You're like constantly like, using a little scroll bar and going up and down and trying to figure out what's going on. So we felt like, well, what if we go to more of an IM style chat and it allows you to kind of organize your conversations however you want to do them. All right, so now we're getting to some of the fun stuff. So you have to leave all the fun stuff towards the end. So, when we started talking about how we're going to connect the Blizzard community together, that seemed kind of challenging to us. Obviously, one step in that was to do the Battle.net account names. But we've made some observations. And some of those observations were this. People often play with their real-life friends. Be it people that in your college dorm, be it people at work, or whatever else. Oftentimes, you have a group of real-life friends that you like to game with. The other thing that we've kind of noticed, especially with the growth of World of Warcraft, a lot of times real-life friendships are also created based on in-game friendships. Like, has anybody here have made friends from people they've met online? So that's a pretty good group. So I think this is a true statement too. And then the other thing we've also noticed is that when new games come out, you kind of want to play with this group of friends. Ideally, a lot of your friends want to play the same future games as you want to play, and you want to be able to maintain those friendships and play with them again. And you look at something like World of Warcraft, that can get challenging, especially when you go into another realm, or if you're going to go onto a game like StarCraft 2, and you have all these great friends in your guild, and a lot of them probably are going to be playing a lot of the same games, but there's really no easy way for you to communicate with them or to play with them again, or even know that they're playing the same games. So then we decided, okay, well, if all those statements are true, let's look at some of the other services and social networks that are out there and how they solve this problem. So first, obviously, we looked at WoW, and I've talked a little about some of the problems with WoW. Kind of this concept of realms, keeping your friends apart. Obviously, on the Horde Alliance split keeps you apart a little bit. And also just the concept of just trying to keep track of all these different character names and trying to know, one person might have 5 different characters, and even trying to keep track of that person being attached to all those characters can be a real challenge. So we kind of looked at Xbox Live, which kind of has more of a concept of one identity across all the games. And when Xbox Live came out, a whole bunch of friends of mine at Blizzard, we all went on and we did this big email chain. We said, okay, you're this name and I'm that name and you're this name. We all added each other to our friends, and we thought it was going to be super awesome. But then about 6 months in, I was playing, like another game like Call of Duty 4 or something, and all my friends are popping online, and I have no idea who those people are. I just know that at some point I added them as friends, so I don't even want to talk to them because I can't remember, who each person was. Another thing we looked at, we started looking at social networking sites. And MySpace, deals with this really well for the most part. The only challenge that I see MySpace had is being able to find new friends, because people could just kind of name themselves whether they want. A lot of times people would just name themselves their first name, or they might name themselves something goofy. So it could be a challenge, like if you go onto the service and you have a bunch of friends on MySpace, but you might be able to use the search function and you still might not find any of them. And then another thing we looked at, which we thought had a really cool feature, was Google Talk. And that's actually in some ways where the notating feature came to the WoW friends list, was in Google Talk. Once I've added you, I can go in and just assign an alias to you. So that way, if you have some goofy Gmail address or something like that, I'm going to know you by your real name. And if you look at people's like Google Talk lists, you'll notice that it's almost entirely all real names, because you just change the alias to how you actually know them. So we decided to introduce this concept of Battle.net Real ID. And the way this works is we want you to be able to see and communicate with friends based on how you know them. And the examples over there are like Facebook and Twitter, which are 2 of the most popular services across the world. They're just eating up market share, and I think a lot of that is because in real life, we don't know each other as Gandalf or as Zeratul. We know each other as Rob Pardo or Greg Canessa. So if that's how people want to know each other, that's how people are going to communicate, why don't we introduce that to the service itself? So one of the things this is going to allow you to do is be able to talk to friends across game and across realm. So if you're real life friends with somebody, it doesn't matter what realm they're on or what game they're on Battle.net, you're going to be able to communicate to them across all of those. Another thing that we can do is also have an achievement system that spans games across characters. So at that point, I think there's probably a lot of people in the